It's now time for the Eld Henderson Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize, which airs each Wednesday evening from 6 o'clock p.m. until 7 o'clock p.m. here on WMPR. We now take you to Studio B for the Eld Henderson Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize, with Dr. Henderson.
Hello, everybody. This is the Eld Henderson's Real News Show, Organize, Don't Criticize. I want to tell you, folks, I want you to buy my book by the same title, Organize, Don't Criticize, at Amazon.com. You need to learn how to pool your resources, build coalitions, and promote unity with self, family, and community. Your life will change in 30, 60, or 90 days, guaranteed. Organize, Don't Criticize, Amazon.com. That's the book of the century. Buy it today.
When was the last time you reviewed your church's bylaws? Are they current with today's laws and regulations, or are they putting your ministry at risk? At PCAP Media, we help churches review, update, and strengthen their bylaws to stay compliant and protected. Don't wait for a problem to arise. Be proactive and prepared. For more information, call PCAP Media today at 601-201-1957. We are also available to help you with your 501c3 application. PCAP Media, supporting today's church with tomorrow in mind.
Hello, everyone. I'm here again to tell you I appreciate you calling us from time to time, going to our website, and, of course, criticizing me on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays about some of the things we discuss on this show. And I really like that, even though I'm always preferring people to organize versus criticizing. But I want to be criticized because I know you all are listening, and just tell me some things that you don't like. And all you have to do every time is call us at 601-201-1957. That's after the show, and we can talk. First, I will listen, and then I will explain what you want me to explain. Now, of course, tonight is different, folks. We are going to have call-ins after the break, and I want you to call us at 769-257-5211 after the 30-minute break. If it gets real interesting and you need to call before that time, don't do it. Wait until the break, folks, because we want to give you time to get all the information you need, because this afternoon, as in the past, I will be talking about some things that some people need to hear, and some know the answer and the problems that I will be addressing, and they want to ignore these problems and continue to do what they are doing. And when you continue to do what you're doing in life and you're not getting good results, folks, you're going to pay the piper later on. And that's why I have this real good topic today. Is going to be called How to Build a New People-Centered Church Economic Power Base in 2026 and beyond. Our topic today is how to build a new people-centered church economic power base in 2026 and beyond. And these ideas coming from three sources. I like to call them experts in this deal where we're talking about economic development. And the experts we're going to use today will be Damon K. Jones. That's D-A-M-O-N, Damon K. Jones. A lot of you all have heard about Dr. Claude Anderson and Eldridge Henderson. These three experts will be talking about how to build this new people-centered church economic power base in 2026 and beyond. Because, folks, I'm telling you now, if you don't change, I've been telling you for years, you're going to get worse. Time is ticking, folks. You find now the president of the United States is just taking countries, bombing people when they get ready, saying, we are going to rule you without your permission, without votes, without anything. And I can assure you what happens, as we say, in other countries and you don't do anything about it, it's going to happen to you. It's going to happen to us. It's going to happen to others. So I'm telling you today, you're going to must remember, pool your resources, use collective actions. I say collective actions. Pool in all your resources with church members, community organizations, families, and individuals with resources, and do some of the things that you will hear on this show today. Now, we know some of you will say, I heard that before, I know what to do, but you didn't do it, and you are getting worse economically as a group of people every day. And the next 2 years and a half will be very significant, and it will determine whether you can make progress during the next 10 years, or you just do nothing for the next 30 years. And since I will be addressing church-based, people-centered economic development, I want you to think about what the church's been doing for you during the last 400 years. I'm talking about the Black church. Don't worry about those other churches. That's what's wrong with a lot of people today. They worry about other folks and not cleaning up their own house. But for too long, ladies and gentlemen, and my church is responsible too long, the Black church has been trapped in a cycle of preaching what I call empty sermons. Same thing every Sunday. The preacher ends with the same thing. There's a lot of political grandstanding in these churches these days, talking about who can't come up in there and say certain things, talking about what the Lord said can't happen in church. And then the other thing that we've been trapped in our Black churches is this so-called survival mode thinking, where no matter what happens in the world, nothing that happens, and the preacher will say, if you want it solved or resolved, just love the Lord, and you'll get your reward in the end. Folks, that's not good preaching. I'm telling you right now, that's a trap. If you want to hear some genuine topics, I want you to just think about if you heard your preacher talking about some of these genuine teaching points that I'm going to mention in a minute. And if you don't hear them or have not heard them in the past, I want you all to talk to these preachers about that, the church leaders and others. I'll tell you exactly how to do it so they won't kick you out. In a few minutes, you're going to hear that I say, if you don't like what's going on in your church, don't be a fool and go in there talking to the pastor by yourself. Always go in there with a group of 5, 7, or 9 church members, and make sure that 5, 7, or 9 members are tithers. Preachers and deacon boards and trustees like to hear from those that are tithing. They give them some attention. But if you go in there and you don't tithe and you're just a regular member that show up on Mother's Day, Christmas, and Easter, they will pay you no attention. I'm not talking about all of them now. I'm talking about 95.5% of them. You want to go into the new year with your pastors teaching the gospel that's focused on faith. In order to make it in this world, folks, you have to know what the gospel is, the gospel of God. You might want to say of Jesus, call it what you want. Some say we have God, Jesus, and others. Some people talk about that Trinity thing, but that's for you all to talk about. I'm not going to get into that today. But some of the new people and all the new preachers ought to start talking about the gospel that's focusing on faith. And if you don't hear your preachers and your board members and others in your church talking about self-sufficiency, where you start doing things for yourself as a church and as a denomination, you need to talk to them. I'm telling you. And the last thing you ought to hear in 2026 and beyond is your preachers talking about the power of God to transform lives. If they're not talking about how God can transform your life and make those topics and subjects Bible-based, they are wasting your time and theirs. You ought to start talking to them seriously then. So you got to remember that Jesus never taught us to be poor or dependent. That's why he wrote the Bible, through his disciples, through his apostles and others. Now, all of you say and believe that the Bible is the word of God, And it could be. But man wrote it, ladies and gentlemen. And in most cases, before man wrote the Bible, some king or some powerful person got together because they were not happy with what was already written and say, I'm going to hire me a group of men. You know, they excluded women during that time, to put some words together that's going to fit my needs so I can say that we have the way. The W-A-Y, the way to go. The information that we're going to teach the people, no matter what they said in the past. So this is why you must be taught to be independent and not poor. And you got to start, according to my information, by reading the Bible, and you'll find that basically the best thing and the most important thing you're going to find in the Bible is that the Bible teaches that you need to love one another. Now, I want you to understand today, I'm not preaching now. I'm just giving you some information. I only preach when I get a special call, I guarantee it. But I want you to know that you got to be taught in your church hereafter, starting in next Sunday, to love one another, to build and create communities rooted in righteousness, equality, and economic empowerment. Everything you hear in your church, starting next Sunday, talking about righteousness, equality, and economic empowerment. If you don't hear your pastor and your program coordinators talking about economic development and empowerment all next year and beyond, they are wasting your time. And you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about in a few minutes, because I will be showing you and telling you that there are certain powers out there that want to put you behind the Iron Curtain right here in America. You don't believe me? You don't believe me. But I'm telling you, folks, you got to be honest. And you have to ask yourself, do the black communities resemble these facts and qualities that I mentioned? Do you hear a lot about love one another? Do you hear a lot about building? Do you hear anybody talking about righteousness, equality, and economic empowerment? You most certainly don't. You don't hear it in the church on a regular basis. You know you don't hear it from the politicians elected and appointed. And I guarantee you, you're not going to hear from the corporate leaders, because they want you to believe those three entities, the preachers, the politicians elected and appointed, and the corporate leaders, want you to think that they know all the answers. And their job is to tell you what to do. And I've been telling you from some time in the past and currently, and you hear it forever, that those three groups, the preachers, the politicians elected and appointed, and the corporate leaders, work for you. You pay their salaries. So I'm going to tell you, you got to be honest, folks, and just ask yourself, do we have these qualities in our communities? I want you to say, no, we don't. We don't have them. There's a limited love in our communities, because you find, and read the news, listen to the television and radios, you find that this limited love denotes the fact that most of our people are being robbed, they're being stolen from, and all of this is happening when they're being robbed and beat up and shot. Guess who it is? Their own folks, their neighbors. And some of us don't build our communities, we tear it down by not addressing the needs, starting in our homes. We're not looking at the problem right across the street, and we don't look at the problem to our right and left and behind us. I'm talking about housing problems, people problems, other problems that are addressed or need to be addressed right in our communities. We look at them and turn our head in another direction and start accusing people and criticizing the politicians, the preachers, and the corporate leaders. And I told you, they are not afraid of you because you don't vote. You don't demand anything from them. But you find that this new church leader, this new preacher, the new groups in these churches, starting next Sunday, ought to be talking about healing the people. They ought to be talking about restoring dignity. And they ought to be talking about providing safe spaces where Black men, women, and children can thrive economically. That's the new word for the next 50 years. Economic development, pooling resources, collective and corrective action, looking out for your own interests. I'm telling you, folks, you've got to do that. It also means that the Black church is going to have to start talking about establishing businesses, small and large businesses for their members and community. Who did I say they need to start talking about establishing business for? Small and large, for their members and the community. We call them community residents. Now, what kind of small and large businesses? You don't find them now in America, but these church denominations, I'm talking about the 7 major Black denominations in the world, and they all originated in America. They need to start thinking about building and owning outright hotels, convention and shopping centers, safe housing, grocery stores, schools, public and private schools, colleges and universities, hospitals, clinics, banks, and recreation centers, all in your community, folks. They also have to start establishing and creating something that you just hear about, but you don't find in your community. And we know they need to start creating short-term vocational and technical certification programs for dropouts and young adults. If you don't have short-term vocational and technical certification programs for your dropouts and your young adults, you're going to have that hate and that non-love spread in your community, where they are going to rob you and shoot you in your home, in your cars, when you're at church, when you're at a public gathering. Those mean young men and women that didn't have the opportunity to get the economic development they need are going to take it from you. You know they're going to do it. So you got to understand, folks, that all of these criminals that are doing these things in your community, they know each other. They know each other well. And I'm going to tell you, you know who those folks are. A lot of you don't like to admit it, but I'm telling you, most of us know who the criminals are in our community. They're usually our sons, daughters, uncles, cousins, aunts, grandparents, and others that we know, that are neighbor across the street. You wonder how they survive, and there are 6 of them living in that house, and no one works. But all of them have, every time you look around, 2 or 3 cars in that household parking area. They're wearing good clothing, and they have money and other resources where it appears that they are doing well all the time. Going to the clubs Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights. You hear me talking about it? Wonder, how are these people surviving? And then when they start surviving off you, which they are, selling drugs, taking things from your house, taking your car anytime you close your eyes, day or night. And here you are wondering, what about all this hopelessness that I'm in today? See, I have a lot of hopelessness. I don't see a bright future. I don't see anything good for myself in my community. So, folks, you're going to have to start thinking that I'm going to have to get with my church leaders. And you'll see where I'm headed in a few minutes. So I'm going to have to get with my church leaders and replace this hopelessness with vision, jobs, and self-sufficiency for myself, my family, and these riffraffs in our community. Because I know them. They are our friends and relatives. We got to help them. Now, with these corrective actions, folks, that I just mentioned, I call them corrective actions, things that you can do to help yourself, help your family members, help the people in your community. With these corrective actions, now it's time to rely on what the Bible says in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18. And verse 18 says, And don't ever forget this, ladies and gentlemen. It says, but remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the ability to produce wealth. That's what I've told you. If you want to learn how to produce wealth, you ought to go where the wealth information is in the Bible. And that preacher of yours and those board members and others that are leading in your church ought to be able to tell you how to get that wealth. And since I know a lot of them are not going to tell you that, I'm going to tell you myself, because I told you we have 3 experts that know about economic development. Damon Jones, Dr. Claude Henderson, and yours truly, Eldridge Henderson. Folks, we've been studying this stuff for at least 50 years each almost. We know what you can do to make it. We know what you can do to be a failure. And we're going to tell you that God has already placed the power of wealth in our hands, and we got to stop looking outside of ourselves for the solution. You're going to hear it today. You're not going to hear it tomorrow or next Sunday in your church. Every now and then, one pastor or so might wake up and talk about it. Most of them want you to live in heaven on earth, if you can, pay your tithes and others, and they'll tell you you're doing a good job. And if you don't pay those tithes and do what you're supposed to do, sometimes you're not wanted in the church. You're most certainly not going to be appointed to in a leadership position. And you're just there, being ignored. But God has placed the power of wealth in your hands, and you got to start looking within, not without. And that's because you want to find that as a Black person, you don't have a bright future, because the Black businesses in your community represent only 2% of all the businesses in our country. 2%. It all depends on what numbers you want to look at. If you only have 2% of the businesses you can go to get the goods and services you need, you say to yourself, where are those goods and services coming from? They're not being Black produced, they're coming from other places. So when you buy them, the money is automatically going out of your community within 5 minutes once you purchase something. And I'm going to show you in a few minutes that you can create your own goods and services and products. You can build them in your own factories, right in your community, and your church. And I will prove it to you in a few minutes, will be the economic hub that you can do all of these things. It is possible. This is not an impossible dream, ladies and gentlemen. You can achieve these things if you utilize and mobilize our existing institutions. Now, what institution is this man talking about? I'm going to tell you, folks. Now, look at the fact. Here's the fact. There are over 65,000 Black churches across America within the concentration of historically Black neighborhoods. I'm talking about your neighborhood, where you live. And where you live, the 65,000 Black churches are usually in what we call your community. And the bad news, and when you call in, if I'm lying, I want you to call me and tell me I'm lying. The bad news about these churches is that the buildings, these 65,000 buildings, are ready to use. I told you a few weeks ago, the lights are on, and I'm telling you, the space is available. But you got to learn how to get it. So I want you to call in, get ready to call in, write out your question. Don't just start calling and stumbling. You call with a question if you want an answer. We don't want no dissertation on what I'm talking about. We want to talk about questions. You call me next week or starting tomorrow if you want to hear something else. But tonight, we want you to call 769-257-5211 if you want to call in. After the break, I'll give it to you again, and that's in about 5 minutes or so. The number to call is 769-257-5211. Get ready to hear what you can do with your 65,000 Black churches across the United States, where 90% of you all live. I told you the buildings are ready for use. The lights are on. The space is available. Why do we refuse to use these facilities for our members? Don't ask me, ask your pastor. Ask your board of trustees, why are you not using this church for something when you're only using it 10% of the time, once, twice, or sometime 3 times during the week? And very seldom is there something in church that lasts more than 3 hours. Very seldom. Even church service now is an hour and a half, and some of the black churches might go to 2 hours and a half. That's a country church, a small church. They might do that. They don't have a lot to do other than go home and eat good and look at television in most cases. So we have 1 minute left. So start writing down your question so you can call us at 769-257-5211, because I'm going to give you all the news you need, the real news, and I'm going to tell you how to organize so you can stop criticizing your communities, your preachers, your corporate leaders, and your family members. That's what you do. When you don't know what's going on, you don't know how to solve your problems, you're going to start whipping up on someone. You usually start with self. So, folks, we're going to break, and I want you to get ready to call us. 769-25.
Plan today, protect tomorrow. Life is full of uncertainties, but your family's future doesn't have to be. Having life insurance, a will, and a trust in place is one of the most powerful acts of love and responsibility you can give to your loved ones. Life insurance provides financial security for your family when they need it most. Will ensures your wishes are honored and your assets go where you intend. Trust offers added protection and peace of mind by safeguarding your legacy. Don't wait until it's too late. Start preparing today so your family is protected tomorrow. Need guidance? Contact Dr. Eldridge Henderson at 601-201-11957 to learn more about how to get started. Dr. Henderson is available for speaking engagements. Like and follow us on Facebook and YouTube. Now back to our show.
When was the last time you reviewed your church's bylaws? Are they current with today's laws and regulations, or are they putting your ministry at risk? At PCAP Media, we help churches review, update, and strengthen their bylaws to stay compliant and protected. Don't wait for a problem to arise. Be proactive and prepared. For more information, call PCAP Media today at 601-201-1957. We are also available to help you with your 501c3 application. PCAP Media, supporting today's church with tomorrow in mind.
Okay, thank you, folks. We're back. I understand that some of you all are calling the old number, 601-948-5950. That's the radio station number. We have a new studio. Call us at 769-257, if you want to, 5211. That's 769-257-5211. Don't call the old number at the radio station. Do not call 601-948-5950. Now, we're talking about, folks, something that is very, very new that you'll want to hear about for the next year. We're talking about how to build a new people-centered church economic power base, something that's totally new in America. They started this right after slavery for a few years, and then folks started getting that little education. And they started then moaning and saying, well, we got to get with other folks. We got to go and do some integration now because we're just doing too good. We have our own hotels, our own service stations, horseshoe places. We have our blacksmith shops. We have our bus stations. We have our hospitals. We have our cab companies. We have our delivery services. And we just hear and see that others are larger than ours. So we're going to go and ask the people in charge if we can integrate with them. And they already done told you when they wrote the Constitution, we don't want you. You're not part of America. You're not even a human being. Stop looking for us to help you. If you don't help yourself, we're going to keep you in slavery. And we say, well, boss, we're not going to help ourselves. So my folks and your folks stayed in slavery for about 450 years. Up until 1865, And it took about 2 years to get things straight with the so-called Freedom Bureau. And it started off as a possibility in about 1868. That was called the Reconstruction. You heard about it. They don't teach this in school anymore. They say we don't want to teach it, that black folks might get some ideas. So after this period, 1868 to about 1877, they had something called the Reconstruction period. And then the same people that told you that I don't want you, you're not a citizen, we can't send you back to Africa because they won't take you. They don't know it, love you either. And they had made efforts to do it, bought a little land in Liberia and other places to send a few black to Africa. And then when them black folks from America that were slaves got to Africa, of course, they sent a few blacks, free blacks over there with them. They took over Africa like the Europeans, kicked the Africans out of positions of responsibility, and ruled those new African nations just like they were being ruled in America. They were the top dogs. I'm talking about them former black slaves and few freed blacks that went over there. They went over there free of charge. Some of them paid $4,000. I don't know where they got it from to get on that ship and go to Liberia. But folks, we don't have to even think about that. We don't even have to think about leaving this country. You shouldn't even think about it. And if somebody offered to pay your way somewhere to Africa, Asia, or the Middle East, or anywhere, you need to say no. Say, I was born here. My folks are here. I helped build the country. And I love it. And I'm going to stay here. And I'm going to stop loving others more than I love myself. That's the reason why we are in the situation we're in, ladies and gentlemen. You love others more than you love yourself. And I'm telling you right now, if you listen to what I'm telling you today, and remember that according to all the research that we have read and all the experts, they are saying at least 65,000 distribution centers are available for black businesses right now. 65,000. That's in the black churches. And you'll find that these church buildings far exceed Walmart and Targets and other locations where they say, well, you all just come and talk to us about it, pay us a little fee, and we'll put 2 or 3 of your products on a shelf in our place. We'll do that. And folks, I tell you, some of you all did that and you were so prosperous. I know of some, we have done the research now, some were making millions of dollars. And when certain people that gave you that opportunity noticed that you were getting rich and having some economic independence, they say these black folks just winning all the time. Every time they get an opportunity, they do better than we are doing. And then some of the politicians, local, state, and federal say, we got to get away from this kind of stuff. They call it DEI initiatives, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the major corporations said it. So folks, I want you to call us now. Don't call the wrong number. Call 769-257-5211 if you want to talk to us. So I'm going to tell you what happened. These major corporations gave blacks a few opportunities to put a little chef product on the shelves at Walmart and Target and some other stores. And that started waking up the black community, particularly the church leaders. Because Target and others said, we will get away from this diversity, equity, and inclusion because the federal government don't like that. They are strapping all the things about minorities and so forth in their initiatives. And we're going to do the same. And the black preachers start losing their minds. Some every Sunday would talk about what Target is doing, what Walmart is doing, how they're looking away from the black experience. So we're going to boycott them. They don't care nothing about that, folks. They know you're going to come back. So you got to say, I'm not going to boycott you. I'm just not going to buy anything from you. That's the difference. When you say you're not going to boycott and you do boycott, that means you're going to have to stand out somewhere with signs and send your spies out there to watch who's buying something, get a few car tag numbers, so you can call them and talk to them like they did in the 1960s. Or you can just give it your black preachers and say, we're going to use, with your permission, these 65,000 church distribution centers that are already available. That's already available. And we are going to pay you some rent to lease this space that you're not using, because you're sitting dormant for 6 days a week while our people struggle financially, because this so-called DEI initiative being rolled back, and business that once thrived in these diversity programs are now struggling. And I know some personally that's out of business right now. They're out of business. They are told you can't come back. And some are real smart. They are saying, well, we'll keep you if you pay us $3,000 a month. $3,000 a month just for space? You know that's not right, but you can't afford to hire a lawyer to go there and find out what the other vendors are paying. And they know that. So I want you to know, folks, that you can look at this economic force, this new force, and you can look at your church as a possible new incubator for black businesses and training centers for his membership and community residents. If you do this, folks, the people throughout the world will start looking at you and saying something is wrong with the black people in America. They are getting to the point now where they want to be independent. They want to be economically self-sufficient. What's wrong with those folks? They must be losing their minds. No, you're not. You're gaining your mind. Folks, you got to think about it. You're gaining your mind because you've been giving your church money to others. And I'm going to give you some very, very bad news about where you're giving that money, where you're spending it, what you're spending it on. I had to buy 2 handkerchiefs when I did the research on that. I say, my, black folks not going to ever have anything in America. They're spending the money in the wrong place. They think they're spending it in the right place, but they're not. But we'll talk to that later on. But right now, we want to show you that with these 65,000 distribution centers that are not being used in America, in your community, you need to take advantage of it because you're spending your money in the wrong place. Now, some of you are saying, well, it appears that he's being critical. Of course, I'm not being critical. I'm speaking with you with love, ladies and gentlemen, because I don't want you to forget the black church in America is the largest, the oldest, and the most organized black financial institution in America. Think about it. Even when they were not allowed to exist, a lot of the black churches say, I'm getting away from the slave master's church. We're going to create our own. They got them some bishops and elders and called them other things, prophets and salvation kings and all kind of things, and started their own church. And they decided we are going to support ourselves and we're going to help our people. That's what they did. And I'm not going to go into how strong and evasive those self-help projects were during the early church period, starting from 1868 up until about 1900. If I say this, you wouldn't believe it. So that's another story. We're not going to talk about what your relatives used to do, your grandparents, great-grandparents. I'm only concerned right now about what you need to do. All of you black folks with all that education and training and got all of these certifications and everything you could think about, you're just wasting your time because you don't take advantage of opportunity. You're spending your money in the wrong place. Now, some of you say, he's saying that again, spending my money in the wrong place. I spend my money where I want. You sure do. And that's why you don't have anything. So I want you to think about, folks, in order to get additional information and a long-term program right in your midst, I want you to think about supporting this broadcast. I want you to donate to our Cash App, $CLU369. That's $CLU369. Or you could become an underwriter by contacting PCAP Media. See, I want to become an underwriter of your show. I want you to talk about the products and the services we have. And you need to just call us at 601-201-1957. That's PCAP Media Group, folks. We want to give you a chance to get rich. I believe in that. Nothing wrong with getting rich. If you share that money with your church people and your community folks. And since a lot of you don't want to believe what I'm telling you, I want you to do some research and read a big article that we found. It says, Black Dollars, White Wealth, Why Our Spending Power Isn't Building Our Future. Why our spending power is not building our future. I'm telling you, that's some good reading. Just put that any way you want. Black dollars, white wealth. Why we're not spending our money properly. It'll pop up. There'll be so many articles and so much research until you'll be ashamed to read it all. And when you hear it, you'll think they're lying. But when you do a fact check, you'll find that it is true. And one of the things that I haven't told you, I didn't want to tell you this, but somebody told me, you're all just going to tell it. Your churches are not organized on the national level. You have 7 major Black church denominations with over almost, the last time we looked, they had about 27 million members in America, in Asia, Africa, in Europe, in Latin America, almost 27 million. And they're not doing very much of anything but showing up once or twice a week. And our churches, and it's bad to say, do not support any national economic program agenda anywhere in the world. I say a national program agenda. They're not even supporting those things that God and the scripture have already ordained them to do. There's something wrong with that, folks. And now they are wasting time talking about boycotting Target and Walmart. Talking, we're going to send them a message. Those folks don't care nothing about you, ladies and gentlemen. So you just forget about that and start using your own resources, those 65,000 churches that are halfway empty 90% of the time. Get with those preachers with groups of 5, 7, or 9 and say, look, we have a business. We have a manufacturing idea. I want to rent and lease some of this space over here, Reverend. So y'all got to let me have it now. The parking lot is out there empty 90% of the time. We want to rent your bus too. You got a bus, you have vans and all kind of things out there not being used. That Deacon Tyler running around on Sundays, picking up a few old folks. Let us lease that van. You can have it on Sunday. Folks, don't listen to this and say, man, this idea is too good to think about. It is, and I want you to do it. So you will find, folks, that the question you must ask yourself, and I'm very serious, has the Black church been misguiding us all along? Some have, and some have not. Others don't know any better. But those that know any better are usually those preachers that have that, what we call that higher education. Those that have been to the seminaries, those that have those master's and doctorate theology degrees. They know what's best, but they are not going to rock the boat. They'd rather buy them a private plane and a helicopter than to use that money you all give them to become an economic hub in the community where they buy hotels, shopping centers, build hospitals, build public and private schools in your communities for you, your members, and the community people. They're not going to do it. You don't demand that they do it. And they're going to show you that they are not going to do a thing. Just keep you pacified. Love your enemies. Pray to the Lord and go to heaven when you die. Folks, you ought to think about that. Might not be the right thing to do. I'm not telling you now it's not, but I'm just saying you ought to think about it. So when you start thinking about uplifting your communities, you got to find that you need to create programs that's going to be favoring you and your people. And you're going to have to ask yourself this question. Think about it. Ask yourself this question, ladies and gentlemen. Have we been fighting for programs that benefit others while leaving our own people in economic chaos? The answer is we have. Have we been fighting for programs that benefit others while leaving our own people in chaos, economic chaos? We have. Most of you have been trained to say, I want to be like other folks. You know what the Bible said when those people start talking about we want a king like them other folks, like these pagans that had all those idol gods. God told Moses and others, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, y'all don't need that now. That's not good for you. And they kept on begging, boss, we want to have some kings like them other folks over there. Look like they're doing real good. And God told his disciples and others, I would say his prophets and others, let those fools get their kings. And I'm going to show you, when they turn you loose, you're going to be begging and praying that I take over again. And my job is to tell you that you better listen to God's program that's in his Bible and start doing something for yourself and make an effort to live in heaven on earth. Then die and see where you're going. You won't be able to see it, folks, because in death, you don't see, you don't hear, you don't breathe, you don't know what's going on. All that stuff you've been told by these people about what's going to happen to you when you die is nothing but, I would say, something to opiate your mind to make you believe something that's not real because they don't know nothing about it. And some people make their living on just coming up with theories and saying, this is the way it is. This is the way it's going to happen. How do I know? Because I've been thinking about this for 50 years, 60 years, 70 years. That's all they've been doing, thinking about it. They don't know what they're talking about. So you got to find, folks, that these things that I'm sharing with you today can happen to you. And I'm going to just give you some examples. And I'm going to show you. And some of you say, well, I don't believe that. But when you do a little research, you're going to find that these are the facts. Now, here's a case study that I want you all to consider. Now, despite making up 2% of the United States population, despite making up 2% of U.S. population, the Jewish community has built an economic and political infrastructure that allows it to control its own communities and institutions. Only 2% of the population. And they have done this through their religion, through their economic groups, and through what we call cultural solidarity. And they put their religion, their economic groups, and their cultural solidarity together. And they came up with what we call an investment strategy. The Jewish community have established a network of businesses, banks, media outlets, and education institutions that keep wealth circulating within their community. We don't. And why is this happening? Because the Jewish community, folks, they believe that their consumers should support their own Jewish-owned businesses. And some of these Jewish businesses, do the research, you don't believe me, some finance their institution by providing interest-free loans and investment capital to help fellow Jews start businesses and build generational wealth. When you have enough money, you can select a few people that you feel just have a little promise. And as a financial institution, when you control billions of dollars, you can give a few interest-free loans and investment capital to help some of the people start businesses that you know that have the skills to build generational wealth. And then another thing that the Jewish people and others have done, additionally, you find that some of these organizations believe in, we have a caller, we're going to see what's going on. Go ahead, caller. Okay, caller, call us at 769-257-5211. Okay, thank you, caller. We'll get with you later on. So I want to tell you, folks, we're going to continue until we get a call. We want you to think about what others have done You got to think about what religious denominations have done other than the blacks, where you're going to have to prioritize your political engagement and ensure that your interest is well represented in government, among local leadership, and among local, state, and national policymakers. We call this prioritizing your political engagement. That means the church preachers, the deacons, the boards of control in these churches in Jackson, in the South, in America, and the big-time denominations that have churches all over Asia and Africa and other places. They have to get involved with the local politicians, with the local leadership, and the policymakers, and demand that some of these jokers put their members on these boards and commissions and policymaking councils. And every now and then, you tell that politician, the governor, the senator, and others, I want you to support old Deacon Peterson to run for the Senate. I can't do that. Yes, you can. You most certainly can. And we're going to expect an announcement from you in 2 weeks, because we have done the research. If the 35% of your folks in your district didn't vote for you, there's no way you can win. How you know that, preacher? Because they are my members. They are my friends' members. And we will suggest to them that they need to vote for someone that's going to look out for their interests. Folks, they'll take that person in a minute. And you will find that's why you think about these other church groups. I just mentioned the Jews, but the Catholics, the Muslims, and all the others do the same thing. They use their church institutions, their schools, and they use their advocacy groups. And they say, we are going to have an influence. We're going to serve as an economic hub. And we're going to have economic cooperation and influence within the cycle of government. We are going to be making some of the policies. We are going to have them to appoint our leaders on these commissions and boards of control. Therefore, we are going to ensure that we remain self-sufficient and independent of external control. That's what 2% of the population can do for you. And that's why the economy of the black is or could be stronger than any other religious group in the world, because with 65,000 locations and black folks having a $1.5 trillion to spend and not do anything with it that you can see, ought to be considered a sin, because the black population in America is not 2% like the Jewish population. We are alleged to be approximately 14 percent, 14 point, probably 5 or 6% of the population. And we have failed to harness our collective wealth and institutional strength, and we have not built yet a sustainable economic system. And I hate to tell you, but I'm going to tell you in a few minutes why we hadn't done this, folks. But I'll tell you part of it, and I told you before, because we continue to look outside ourselves for economic solutions when other communities look within and say we are going to be self-sufficient when possible. And we are going to determine our destiny from birth to death while we are alive for the next 300 generations. Now, what stops us from doing this? What stops us from following this model, ladies and gentlemen? Can we use an agenda that's working that other people are using, since you love other people more than yourself anyway? Won't you do something different? Find something that works and make it work for you. Now, I hate to tell you, but I'm just going to break down. Producer, you think I ought to talk about what I'm getting ready to talk about? You give me a signal. Yeah, I see that signal. Yeah, I'm going to talk about it. We don't have too long, just a few minutes left. I'm going to tell you, folks, why we are not doing the thing we should be doing with our resources. I just want to tell you. I know you don't want to hear it, but I'm going to just show you and tell you where you are spending your money. You've heard this many times, but we're just going to share this with you. And many of you already understand that your money is being just given away. You're wasting a lot of time with the money you're spending. And you ought to be shedding tears when you look at the reality that we must face. And according to one of our research specialists, and according to Damon K. Jones, our economic institutions is dark. And they're getting darker, folks. Because even though you have a few individuals that are successful, I'm talking about Black individuals, and they highlight their progress within the community. Usually they don't build schools. They might give a few $100s here and there. They don't build big businesses that make millions and millions of dollars and give you an opportunity to replicate what they do. And it's because, folks, those of us that's working out here don't have the medium income to do the things we need to do because we spend the money on other things. Now, just to give you an example, you'll find that the Black household earns a median income of about $56,490 annually. That's the lowest income among major racial groups in America. Compared to the Indians from India, they make about $135,000 a year. The Chinese, about $105,000. The Japanese, about $95,000 a year. The white non-Hispanics, we call them white folks, make roughly, we call them median income, $89,000 a year. The Hispanics make about $65,400 a year. Even the American Indians and the Alaska natives make about $57,000, and the poor Blacks in America, been here so long, about 600 years, $56,490 a year. Now, let me tell you why we are broke, folks. Even though we're earning less money than anybody else in the world almost, even some of those people in Africa make more money than Black Americans, and they spend it wisely, but we don't. Now, here's something that the producer told me I shouldn't talk about, but I'm just going to tell you why we are broke and still we're rich. Here's why we are spending our money, folks. Most of you all spend $1.2 billion on beauty and grooming products, and I'm only talking about those that are guilty. Most of you spend $29 billion on footwear and things related to looking good, wigs, eyelashes, fingernails, toenails. And then there are another group of you spending over $20 billion on cars. We call it automobiles. Some of you bad enough to buy these small airplanes and don't even have a license yet. You go and lease space in an airport hangar somewhere and hire someone to drive you around when you go from city to city or state to state. And then there are a lot of you spending over $120 billion on food and dining out. Folks, think about it. You ought to be raising some of your food, canning some of your food. And when you come to economics, folks, and ownership, you'll find that the picture is bleak. And that's why, even though you don't make a lot of money, you have a lot of money to spend, billions. We don't have it 30 seconds. And I'm going to do part 2 when we come back next week and then come up with several other things. But I want to tell you, folks, you want to think about calling us now. You missed in today. You missed us. So you can call us later on, starting tomorrow at 601-201-1957. Because we're going to do part 2 next week. We want to thank you for staying with us. We want to thank you for staying with us, folks. We are available. We can help you start your 501c3s for your church, get you some nonprofit organization. We can teach you how to write grants, folks. We have public speakers. We'll come to your church, your schools, your family reunion. and your so-called other activities, and privately tells you some things we can't tell you on radio. We're not like some of these church folks that go and say, this is it, folks. We go into the hotels and let all that information get out. So I want to say thank you, folks. Thank you for listening to us. Part 2 next week on how to become independent.